We did just have some people come in. There's an empty seat up front.
About $10 million of the total project. Therefore, the owner of JUI through Oak Meadows stand to benefit nearly 40% of the value of the project without being a ratepayer or committing any capital in the project. More importantly, this also means that 56% of this project would be dedicated to empty lots. Lastly, according to a recent document, the PSD staff recommends that the case for the agreement between JUI and PSD be dismissed. And I quoted from the following from the memo, and I won't go through that in the interest of time. But further, actually I do want to go through that. Based upon staff, this is a quote from the PSC's document. Based upon staff's review of the proposed agreement, our present knowledge of the proposed water project, the current status of funding for the project in the district and JUI operations, staff believes that this agreement has been submitted prematurely. The agreement is simply not detailed enough to allow for a proper review at this time. It lacks important information regarding the proposed project scope and funding, as well as lacking sufficient detail for staff to complete a substantive review of the financial terms of the agreement. Further, in order to properly review the financial terms of this long-term agreement, we must have access to the proposed bond documents, or at least a draft version of such documents. Consequently, even though we appreciate the importance of the underlying project, we are unable to recommend the approval of this agreement at this time. Thus, staff will now recommend this case be dismissed without prejudice, and that this agreement be amended to provide sufficient detail to allow a proper and meaningful review by staff. We further suggest that the appropriate time to file this inter-utility agreement would be simultaneous with the filing for a certificate of convenience and necessity for this project, after the project scope, cost, and financing are fully defined, and following the preparation of the bond documents. Does this mean that JUI and PSD are no longer partners? That's a question I have. Does this preclude that JUI would not qualify for any of the loans or grants in the first place? Furthermore, does this, Furthermore, does this mean JUI will once again try to fulfill the December 2009 letter of intent to the PSC to apply for another rate increase to the tune of $123 per 4,000 gallons? Well, as I've stated in the past, the value of water should always be protected by a framework of strict oversight. My Water is privately owned in a pending partnership who can return to the PSC of West Virginia as many times as it takes to achieve capital gain via rate increases according to its perception of our bottomless pockets and the county's willingness to abide. When water becomes a profitable commodity, we have lost civility and liberty. I don't think we'd be challenged if reasonable options were sought after, instead of the crazed attitude that water has turned to liquid gold. The SCBG doesn't just represent free money. It represents our ability as a county to meet the challenge of growth in the right manner, instead of setting a precedent of survival of the fittest, in which we lose our constitutional rights. The struggle you face with completing this application are not because of, the inability or even time. It is because there's no way to explain this project with rational thoughts and consistent information. I must believe there are people left with consciences in our society. Tonight, when the heaviness of this situation weighs on your consciences, I would like for you to think about some solutions to this problem with one premise: what if you were one of us? I want to offer a suggestion. What if the county could float a $10 million bond to be paid back by lot owners, not customers, at a rate of $22,000 per lot over 5 to 10 years? This would be a fair assessment, and it is quite the standard across our nation. The county would certainly qualify for the grants it's applying for. And my time's up?
Time's up, but you have 30 seconds.
I have 30 seconds? Okay.
We all want to hear that.
I'm trying. Okay.
Fantastic so far.
Could I offer for my time?
Yes, you've just been seeing another 3 minutes.
Sorry, I'm so long-winded.
Don't apologize for what you're doing, we love it.
The option of countywide consolidation is a possibility and is favorable given the economic climate and the water sewer infrastructure needs mounting to $81 million in this county. Under a larger, more formidable entity for water and sewer, we would qualify with dignity for a variety of available funding without exasperating each and every customer base whose only vested interest is to have clean water for their families. Please consider that the JUI-PSD partnership will not be able to perform these projects without charging ridiculous rates. We need West Virginia code to be interpreted such that a company with a large enough customer base and a willingness to put in capital investment can purchase under receivership the private portion of the now pending partnership. Please consider the fact that the application process has been rushed. The implied rates are inexcusable. Most of the budget for the preferred project goes toward empty lots. The recent recommendation of the PSD regarding the legitimacy of the partnership and that the partnership cannot be realized until past cases are closed in order to issue the certificate of convenience and necessity. If it pleases the County Commission, I would ask you to vote not to submit this application, and at the very least vote to defer until we gain more reasonable solutions and that the binding parties reflect on a more positive future for the customers for whom they are supposed to serve. Thank you.
Yeah!